Okay, so we get a lot of requests for people wanting to know how we do our big plaits, which are called stallion plaits or Dutch plaits, or in America they're called cobra plaits, which is big round plaits that sit right up on top of the horse's neck, and they just give the impression of the horse having a stronger top line. We also find them easier and quicker to do than lots of small plaits. The most important thing is the mane that you start with. We never pull manes for two reasons. One, we think it's really uncomfortable for the horses. Some horses don't mind it at all, but it really can't be very nice having your hair pulled out from the roots. So, to get a nice, neat, tidy mane that's the same length all the way along, all we do every couple of weeks is trim along the bottom of the mane line with scissors. And just do a little bit at a time, because you can always take more off, but you can't stick it back on, until you're happy with the length. And then if you don't like that really square end on it, just nip up into the last centimetre of the mane with the scissors to just give a more natural edge to it. And that means that as the mane grows down, the hair's the same length all the way down, and you don't get all those little frizzy bits that you get when you pull it. Because if the mane's too thin and too short, when you grab a thick section to plait it, you end up with loads of little bits sticking out the side of your plaits all the way down, and it's really, really hard to get a neat finish on the plait when you roll it up. So, no pulling, just scissors. Try and keep the rugs off the bottom of the mane, so the bottom of the mane is the same thickness as well. Make sure your rugs sit well back behind the bottom of the mane. And that's all there is to it. Okay, so now I've sectioned the mane off, and Fig has 6 plaits, which is the maximum number I would do for anything under about 16.2, because otherwise you're not doing big plaits anymore, you're doing loads of small ones. For anything with a really, really long neck, 7 plaits, but again, that's the absolute maximum I would do. I always start at the bottom, because you always get one plait at the bottom that's slightly smaller, slightly thinner, and you'll find there's a natural place in the mane where it parts. And if you try and plait over that parting, you just end up with the plait falling out. So it's just easier to do that bottom plait near the very base of the mane where the hair wants to split off anyway, and then make sure the rest of your mane is sectioned off evenly in terms of width and thickness of the mane. Now at the top, we found that especially if you use a padded headpiece bridle, it can sometimes pull on this first plait and pull it down onto the mane, onto the neck. So what we do is just take a short section of the mane, pull it underneath the headpiece of the head collar, and then we plait that into the forelock instead. So then you give a bigger gap for the headpiece of the bridle to lay without pulling your first plait over sideways. So for each plait, give it a comb through, make sure you've got no knots in it. And then I use a damp sponge instead of a water brush so that you don't get loads of drips down their neck. And just make sure it's damp on both sides. Now, I know some people use hairspray or hair gel, but we use some root spray because that just gives me a little bit of grip without making the hair really sticky and dry when you unplait later in the day. And then give that a comb through, just so you can make sure the hair's all brushed upwards, because it's volume you're wanting to create. Then split into 3 pieces and start plaiting. But after you've done one cross on each side, just pull your side bits out a little bit to create that hood that gives the plait a bit of volume. So just make sure they're even, and then plait the rest of the plait down normally and quite tightly to get all your little hairs in. band the bottom of the mane, and then I also tuck that underneath like that, so you have a nice neat end and the little frizzy hairs are underneath. And if you've got quite a long tail on the plait, you can just pop another band round just to hold those short hairs underneath like that. Okay, so then I just press my finger into the base of the plait quite firmly and pull it up, so I'm making sure it's loose here, because otherwise if you do a really tight plait tight to the crest of the neck, they're going to end up with like a horsey equivalent of a ponytail headache. And I do think that that can cause some inconsistencies in contact, or head tossing, or not wanting to stay soft down the rein. And nobody wants that, especially for dressage. Then I'm just rolling the plait right up, rolling it tight into that little hood, making sure my hoods are even on either side. And then here I've got a blunt plaiting needle. You don't need a sharp needle for plaiting. And I've just knotted the thread onto the end so that I can't keep losing my thread. We then go through one side of the plait, and then back through to roughly the same place, and just do that 2 or 3 times until you feel like you can pull on that thread without the thread just pulling through the plait. Then I'm going to go into the same place, diagonally across through the plait and out the back on the other side, and then just back and forth through that same spot in the plait, again 2 or 3 times until you feel like you can pull the thread and it's nice and secure. Then we go diagonally back across to secure the other way, and then we come into the same place, diagonally through the plait and out towards the bottom front of the plait. So you're then securing the bottom of the plait back and forwards into the bottom of the plait, so you're securing it on top of the neck. That, and again you can just manipulate the loose hair at the side until it looks even, until it looks happy, until you're happy with it. Okay, so now for the forelock. You can just plait it down how you would do a normal plait on the mane and then roll the end up, but for a slightly neater finish we normally French plait them. So I've already damped it down, I've already put some root spray in and combed that through. So I'm just going to separate off 3 little bits of hair, start plaiting them, just a normal plait. But then each time you cross the side bit over the top, you're just taking a little bit of hair out of the body of hair that's underneath the plait and adding that into the crossover. Just exactly the same how you French plait your own hair. And you just need to do that all the way down, making sure you smooth each crossover out and keeping those 3 bits of hair separate so it doesn't get in a muddle further down. And I'm keeping this reasonably tight as I plait down to keep it neat. But in a moment you'll see what we do to avoid that ponytail headache for horses. And then when you get to the bottom, you've added all of the extra hair in, then just plait to the end. Exactly how you would do for a normal plait. And then just tuck those loose ends under again, your elastic band, And then I just really carefully just pull the sides of the plait out a little bit, pull it up off the head a little bit. Just make sure it's loose, so it's not pulled right in tight and giving them a headache. And then with your needle, just need to push it just through where the elastic band is a couple of times, just to secure that thread. It's not going to be perfectly in the same place. And then just push your needle up into the plait so it comes out about halfway down, and then you can pull that loose end up into the body of the plait, which keeps it really neat and out of view. Push your needle back through, and then you want to do big stitches on the underneath where you can't see them, but on the top where you can see them, you need to make sure your needle goes back through in virtually the same place. And then just push your needle into the end of the plait, fold that end in, just go up and down through the plait a couple of times. And then just nip the end off. For our finishing touch for our plaits, again, we don't use hairspray, because then when you take the plaits out, it leaves the mane really dry and really frizzy, and you have to wash it all out again. So instead, we give a little spray with this, which you can just get from Boots. It's got a sunscreen in to stop the hair being faded in the sunlight, and it's got a vitamin E conditioner in it as well, and it just leaves a nice soft sheen without being greasy. So just spray a little bit on the plaits. And we've also put that in Fig's tail and on his legs, just to give a nice gleam on his dark legs. And that's the finished item.